While I was in the hospital, my parents and sister told my 6-year-old adopted daughter she would be sent back to the orphanage. "You need to make space for the real children," my sister screamed. I didn't shout. I took action. The next morning, the whole family lost it. I had just been released from the hospital when my husband Michael drove me to my parents' house to collect our daughter. 3 days. That's how long she had been there. 72 hours. A blink for an adult, an eternity for a 6-year-old. I told myself it would be fine. My parents lived with my sister Rachel and her daughter Chloe, who was the same age as Leah. Built-in playmate, doting grandparents. It should have been fine. But the second the front door opened, I knew it wasn't. Leah was waiting in the hallway with her little backpack already strapped on. It was stuffed with pajamas and toys, her rabbit's ears poking out of the zipper. She didn't drop it. She didn't run into my arms. She just stood there, small and silent, staring at the floor. "Sweetheart," I said, arms out. Nothing. Not a smile. Not even a step forward. Behind her, my mother appeared, all cheerful brightness. "Oh, you're here." She's been an angel. An angel. Sure, if by angel you mean child who looks like she just witnessed a crime. Rachel drifted in next. Chloe stuck to her side. Chloe was grinning, smug in the way only a child who has never heard the word no can grin. Rachel's eyes flicked to me, and her mouth twitched into the faintest little smirk. My stomach tightened. Michael reached for Leah's backpack. "Ready to go home, kiddo?" She nodded once, stiff. No hug, no sparkle, no usual flood of chatter. Just silence. We left quickly. I couldn't stand one more second of my mother's fake smile or Rachel's look of victory. The car ride was worse. Leah sat in the back, Rabbit clutched in her lap, staring out the window. Normally, she'd talk the entire way home. What Chloe said, what they ate, some new game they made up. But that day? Nothing. I twisted in my seat. "Did you have fun with Grandma?" A pause, then a shrug. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" Her little voice was barely audible. "Am I taking too much space?" Michael's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "What?" My heart thudded. "I can be small," she whispered. "I don't need lots of toys." I stared at her. "Who told you that?" But she just twisted the rabbit's ear tighter and stared harder out the window. Back at home, things didn't get better. Leah hovered in the hallway, backpack still strapped on, like she wasn't sure she belonged. "You can put your bag down," I said gently. "We're home now." No movement. "Sweetheart, put your toy back in the box before dinner." That's when she snapped. She dropped the rabbit like it burned her, shoved it into the toy bin, and burst into tears. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was out. I'll be good. I'll make space. Please don't send me away." I froze. Michael dropped to his knees instantly. "Leah, hey, no one's sending you anywhere." But she shook her head wildly, sobbing so hard her words came out in broken gasps. Auntie said, "I need to make space for the real children. She said I'll go back to the orphanage." The words cut through me like glass. I knelt beside Michael, gathering her against me. She was trembling so hard I could feel it in my bones. "Listen to me," I said, steady and low, forcing every ounce of calm into my voice. "You are my daughter. You are not going anywhere." Her big wet eyes locked on mine, desperate. "But Auntie said—" "Auntie was wrong." My tone was ice. "You are mine. Always." Her sobs slowed, but the damage was done. The rabbit dangled from her hand like a casualty of war. I kissed her forehead, smoothing her hair, rocking her gently until her breathing evened out. Michael rubbed her back, silent. "But me?" My mind was already racing. Rachel. Rachel, who had smirked at me in that hallway like she'd already won. Rachel, who had the audacity to tell my daughter she wasn't enough. They thought they could break her in 3 days. They thought wrong. Later that night, after Leah finally fell asleep curled around her rabbit, I stood in the kitchen with a glass of water, staring out into the darkness. Michael hovered in the doorway, unsure whether to speak. I didn't. Not yet. All I could hear was Leah's little voice, shaking. "I'll make space. Please don't send me away." And all I could feel was the fire building in my chest. They had told my daughter to make space for the real children. They had no idea the storm they had just unleashed. I didn't always know what it meant to be the unfavorite. As a kid, I thought it was normal that my sister Rachel got the biggest slice of cake while I got the crumbs. Normal that she got applauded for coloring outside the lines while I got scolded for not staying inside them. Normal that every family photo looked like she was the prize and I was the prop. It wasn't normal. It was favoritism. But I didn't have the words back then. Rachel was the golden child, always. She could spill juice on the carpet and be called spirited. I could bring home straight A's and get asked why they weren't A+. You get the picture. And you know what? I swallowed it. I learned my role. Keep quiet. Be useful. Don't expect too much. But some things stay with you, buried under your skin like splinters. Years later, I married Michael. Sweet, conflict-averse Michael. And we tried for children. And tried. And tried. Each month another failure. Each doctor's appointment another piece of hope chipped away. Eventually, the verdict came. My chances of conceiving were almost non-existent. So we turned to adoption. It wasn't a whim. It was years of paperwork, interviews, waiting, and praying that some child out there would become ours. And then, Leah. 2 years old, wide-eyed, cautious at first, but mine from the moment I saw her. She's 6 now, bright, stubborn, a little tornado of honesty. She knows she's adopted. We've never hidden it from her, but she doesn't remember the orphanage. At 2, you don't hold on to those memories. Orphanage to her is just a scary word she's picked up from books or movies, the kind where sad-eyed children stare out windows. She has no real memory of it, which makes it even worse that someone used it against her. At first, my family put on their polite masks, forced smiles, fake enthusiasm. "Oh, how wonderful," they said. "Of course we'll treat her like family." But I could feel it. The stiffness in their hugs. The way my mother patted Leah's head like she was a neighbor's kid, not her granddaughter. The way Rachel's smile never reached her eyes. And then the comments started. Always subtle, always sugar-coated. "It must be different from having your own. She'll always know she's not really ours." Little knives disguised as observations. I told myself it didn't matter. Leah had me. She had Michael. That was enough. But I was wrong. Because then the miracle happened. Against every prediction, every statistic, I got pregnant. 1 in 1,000, the doctor said. A fluke. A gift. And I was overjoyed. Not because Leah wasn't enough, but because she was. I wanted her to have a sibling. I wanted 2 children to love equally. My family's reaction? Not joy. Not celebration. Something colder. "Well, now you'll have a real child," my mother said, her voice sticky sweet. "Do you regret adopting now?" Rachel asked with that smirk I know too well. "The baby will need space." "It could get confusing, growing up with a stranger in the house," my dad muttered. A stranger. That's what they called my daughter. Every time they said things like that, I smiled thinly and tucked it away. But inside, I felt it. The splinters of my childhood all twisting at once. Then there's Chloe, Rachel's daughter. Same age as Leah, but you'd think she descended from royalty the way my parents treat her. Chloe's drawings are framed on the fridge. Leah's, left on the table until they accidentally end up in the trash. Chloe is called our little princess. Leah? Oh, she's polite. Polite. That's what you call a coworker, not your granddaughter. Leah noticed. Of course she did. Kids always notice. She didn't say it out loud, but I could see it. The way her shoulders hunched a little when Chloe was showered with praise. The way her smile faltered when her own work was ignored. Then the hospital scare. 3 days under observation, hooked up to monitors, convinced at any moment I'd lose the baby. Luckily, everything turned out fine. I was released, healthy, pregnant, relieved. But while I was gone, my family had been busy reminding Leah of where they thought she stood. They didn't just compare her to Chloe, they compared her to the baby I was still carrying, and in their eyes, Leah came last. And now I understood the look in her eyes when I brought her home. She believed them, and that was the moment my fear gave way to rage. Perfect. Thank you for clarifying exactly what you want. I'll deliver part 3 in the same voice and pacing as parts 1 and 2, raw, tense, laced with dry humor, and full of cliffhangers. Around 1,200 words, no repetition, no drift into part 4. This will be the showdown chapter. Here we go. It was a Saturday morning when Michael and I finally drove to my parents' house. Leah was safely at her dance class, twirling her way through itsy-bitsy spider routines with other 6-year-olds, blissfully unaware of what was about to go down. Which was good. What I had planned was not for small ears. The car ride was quiet. Michael's hands gripped the wheel a little too tightly, his knuckles pale. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. I turned my head slowly, giving him the kind of look only a woman who has been pushed past her limit can give. "I'm very pregnant, very tired, and very much done. So yes, I'm sure." He shut up. Smart man. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my stomach wasn't fluttering with nerves. It was buzzing with rage, hot and electric, the kind that settles into your bones and keeps you steady. Everyone was there. My mother, fussing with a plate of cookies like she was auditioning for World's Best Grandma. My father, silent sentinel with his folded arms, the human version of a wet blanket. Rachel, perched on the couch like a queen, her husband beside her, nodding dutifully at whatever nonsense dripped from her mouth. And Chloe, of course, sprawled on the carpet with crayons and an audience that clapped at every line she drew. It was a family tableau, normal on the surface, rotten underneath. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "What?" I said, my voice sharp as broken glass. "Did you say to my daughter?" The room went still. Even Chloe stopped coloring. My mother looked up first, smile already pasted on like frosting. "Oh, Julia, don't be dramatic." Leah misunderstood. Misunderstood? My laugh was dry, humorless. Because she came home sobbing that her auntie told her she needed to make space for the real children. Rachel straightened, lips twitching into that familiar smirk. She was in Chloe's space. She needs to learn boundaries. "Boundaries?" I snapped. "She's 6, Rachel." 6. The only boundary she should be learning is not to eat paste. Michael cleared his throat, but I held up a hand to silence him. This was my fight. Dad finally spoke, his voice low and measured. "You're too sensitive right now. Everything feels bigger because of the pregnancy. Ah, yes, the classic family move. Gaslight me into doubting my own ears. Sensitive?" I tilted my head. "Funny. I thought sensitivity was when you don't tell a child she's disposable." Rachel rolled her eyes. "No one said she was disposable." "Really?" I shot back. "Because she told me Auntie said she'd go back to the orphanage." That doesn't exactly sound like a Hallmark moment. Rachel shifted in her seat, just enough to confirm I'd hit the nerve. Her husband squeezed her knee like he was her emotional support animal. We didn't mean it literally. My mother cut in, her voice syrupy sweet. It was just to make her behave. Behave. There it was, their favorite excuse. I leaned forward. You told a child who doesn't even remember the orphanage but knows enough to fear it that if she didn't behave, she'd be sent back. And you thought that was okay? Silence. Rachel's mask slipped, just a fraction. Stop pretending Chloe and that girl are equals. They're not. There it was, the quiet part out loud. My father didn't flinch. My mother didn't gasp in horror. Rachel's husband nodded like she'd just delivered the Gettysburg Address. Their silence was louder than any words. I sat back, oddly calm. Thank you, I said softly. My mother blinked. For what? For finally saying it. Because in that moment, clarity settled over me like a cold, hard blanket. They weren't going to change. They weren't going to suddenly see Leah as theirs. They weren't going to apologize. They had never accepted her. They had barely accepted me. Michael cleared his throat again, this time louder. They'll never change, Julia. I looked at him, and for once we were perfectly in sync. No, I said. They won't. Which is why they'll never see my children again. My mother gasped, as though she hadn't been the one to carve up my daughter's worth with a smile. Don't be ridiculous. We're your parents. Exactly, I said flatly. And parents don't treat their children this way. Rachel scoffed. Oh, grow up. You've always been jealous. That old chestnut. The word they'd beaten me with since I was old enough to speak. I smiled thinly. Jealous of what? That you're the kind of person who tells a 6-year-old she's not real family? Congratulations, Rachel. Gold star. Her face flushed crimson. We didn't stay long after that. The air was toxic, the walls closing in with every breath. Michael and I walked out without finishing the cookies, without saying goodbye, without looking back. The drive home was silent, but it wasn't heavy. It was clean. Final. Finally, Michael spoke. So what now? I stared out the window, watching the houses blur by. Now? We cut them out. His jaw tightened. All of them? All of them. I turned to him, my voice steady as stone. They wanted space. Fine. They're going to get more space than they ever imagined. That night, while Leah slept curled against her rabbit, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone. There was a group chat, of course. One I'd been in since the dawn of time. Photos of Chloe, reminders about family dinners, guilt trips about not visiting enough. I opened it, stared at the little thread of messages. Then, with one swipe, I was out. Gone. I started a new chat. Just friends, a couple cousins I trusted, Michael. The people who actually mattered. And then I started planning my baby shower. This time, I wouldn't be the one begging for space. I would be the one taking it back. The phone calls started the moment the invitations went out. First my mother, her voice a shriek down the line. How dare you exclude us? We are your parents. Then Rachel, nastier. You're pathetic, Julia. Hiding behind that girl, poisoning her against us. You'll regret this. My father weighed in too, though his tone was calmer. This isn't how family works. You don't just cut people off. Really? Because they'd been cutting me off since birth. Slice by slice, comment by comment. When I stopped answering, the texts started, paragraphs of guilt-tripping, veiled threats, attempts to rewrite history. I muted the thread, let them scream into the void. But they didn't stop there. Oh no. They called around, spun their story to anyone who'd listen. A cousin rang me up, sounding bewildered. Julia, your mom said you banned them from the baby shower. Is that true? Yes. She said it's because you're unstable. Because of the pregnancy. I snorted. She told my 6-year-old she isn't real family and threatened to send her back to the orphanage. That's why she's not invited. Silence. Then a stunned, "Oh." Word travels. And with every "oh," another seed of doubt got planted in the wider family tree. Saturday afternoon, the house was glowing. Streamers taped across the living room, a cake from my friend Sarah on the counter, stacks of tiny pink and blue plates. Friends, a few trusted relatives, laughter bouncing off the walls. Leah darted between guests, handing out napkins like they were treasure maps, proudly announcing she was going to be a big sister. She beamed when people called her the helper or the best big sis. For once, she wasn't on the sidelines. I wanted to freeze the moment, keep it safe. And then the doorbell rang. Michael and I exchanged a look. He shook his head slightly, already knowing. I opened the door, and there they were. My mother, holding a bakery cake with sagging frosting. My father behind her, stiff as ever. Rachel striding forward like she owned the place, her husband dutifully lugging a giant gift bag. The room went quiet. My mother's smile was all teeth. "Surprise!" We couldn't stay away. Family is family, after all. Behind me, I could feel my guests shift uneasily. Some hadn't realized they weren't invited. Now the question hung in the air. Why not? I stepped aside. Because what was I going to do? Wrestle the cake out of her hands and slam the door? Number. Not yet. They entered like they were saints walking into church. My mother handed off the cake to Sarah, who nearly dropped it, and immediately announced loudly, "Oh, what a lovely gathering! This baby will bring the family together properly. Properly." The word landed heavy, but no one challenged it. Not yet. I stood near the fireplace, watching as they mingled with forced charm. Rachel clutched her gift bag like it was proof of her devotion, her husband nodding at her every word. My father hovered silently, the permanent shadow to my mother's sunshine. The performance was perfect. On the surface. But every so often, the poison slipped through. "Of course this one is different," my mother said to a group near the kitchen. "Your own baby, it's just special." I saw a cousin's eyebrows shoot up, but she stayed quiet. Rachel, half laughing at the punch bowl. "Chloe has been so excited. She says she'll teach the baby everything. It's different, you know, when it's blood." Blood. That word hung like smoke. Guests shifted. Whispers started. Still, no one said anything. I stayed silent too, calm, patient, because I knew what was coming. The breaking point arrived 10 minutes later. One of my friends crouched down to Leah, smiling warmly. "You must be so excited to be a big sister." Leah's face lit up, shy but proud. She nodded, clutching her rabbit, and Rachel, leaning toward her husband but not nearly quiet enough, muttered, "Please. She's not even a real sister." The room froze. Leah's smile collapsed. My chest went cold. Rachel realized too late she'd been heard. She straightened, eyes darting, scrambling for a save. My mother jumped in fast, voice syrupy. "That's not what she meant." But it was too late. "Did you just say that?" my cousin demanded, eyes wide. Another guest shook her head in disgust. "How could you say that about a child?" "In front of her?" Leah pressed herself into my side, trembling. Michael's voice cut through the silence, steady and sharp. "It's time for you to leave." Rachel's face went scarlet. "This is ridiculous." "You're twisting—" "No," I interrupted, my voice low but carrying. "You just showed everyone here exactly who you are. And I believe you." My father tried one last time. "We didn't mean it like that." "You're overreacting." I barked a laugh. Dry. Bitter. "Overreacting?" "My daughter came home sobbing because you told her she needed to make space for the real children. And here you are, proving her right. My mother's mask cracked. Her voice rose. "We are your parents. You can't just cut us out. Watch me." The silence that followed was absolute. They sputtered excuses, backpedaled, tried to plaster over the slip. But the room had already turned. Guests stared them down, lips tight with disgust. They didn't win anyone back. And me? I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to cry. I just pointed to the door. "Get out." Rachel opened her mouth again, but Michael stepped forward, his face like stone. "She said leave." And for once they listened. The door slammed behind them, the sagging cake abandoned on my counter like a bad joke. The room let out a collective exhale. But I didn't. Not yet. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. It's been almost a year since that baby shower, and my parents, Rachel and her husband, haven't been anywhere near me, Michael, Leah, or the baby. Not once. Of course, they tried. The first attempt came days after the birth, a flood of messages. "We want to meet the baby. Let's put this behind us." Behind us? They threatened to send my 6-year-old back to the orphanage. "You don't put that behind you." I ignored them. Next came my father, standing awkwardly on the porch with a stuffed animal in his hands. Michael didn't let him get a word out before closing the door. And then came silence. Not because they gave up. Oh no, because everyone else started talking. The story spread like wildfire. What Rachel said, what my parents allowed, how they stood there while my daughter cried. People were horrified. Friends who once gave them the benefit of the doubt cut ties. Cousins stopped defending them. Neighbors looked the other way in the grocery store. They thought they could smear me as unstable. Instead, they burned their own reputations. Now, when their names come up, people don't say, "Oh, what a lovely family." They say, "Those are the ones who threatened to send their granddaughter back to the orphanage." That's their legacy. Meanwhile, my life feels lighter than it ever has. Leah no longer whispers about making space. She doesn't apologize for existing. She's too busy introducing herself proudly as a big sister. My friends are still here. The relatives who matter are still here. And the ones who aren't? They've erased themselves. They wanted space. They got it. And I finally got peace. On my fridge, there's a photo of Leah holding her baby brother, grinning ear to ear. This is my family. Complete. And nobody is ever being sent away. Do you think I did the right thing? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more.